Let's talk today about homeschool high school language arts planning. This is one of my favorite topics, so it's one of the reasons I chose it today, and I know that it is a big help for lots of homeschool parents. And language arts is kind of confusing. There's a lot of components, there's a lot going on, and when high school comes, all of a sudden we feel that pressure to somehow keep up, perform, and to make sure that we're getting our students ready for real life. We're getting them ready for education outside high school, so college, university. We're getting them ready for the world and for jobs. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right. We want to make sure that we're not leaving things out and we're not going to leave them holding the bag for our errors. And sometimes as homeschool parents, we feel a lot of pressure and guilt about that. So let's get started today. A few of you have left me questions on posts, and I so appreciate that. And actually, that really helped me to kind of gear this talk today towards exactly what you want. So here we are. The first question I received in the posts was, how many language arts credits do I need to graduate? Well, that's kind of a thorny issue, because it depends where you are, what graduate means. So the first thing I would say to that question is find out what the legislation is in your area. What counts as a credit? What is required of your student to graduate, or do they even get a diploma? I know where I live in Manitoba, Canada, you don't get a diploma when you finish high school by homeschool. You get the skills that you have and you market those skills directly to the college or university with a parent transcript or some portfolio to show what your abilities are. So it really depends what you need in your area. It also depends what your long-term goals are and what your long-term plans are. If your student's not going to college, university, then probably your plans are going to be different than if they are. So that's kind of something that we're going to continue to talk about. There are a few different ways to think about language arts credits and to think about when to graduate a homeschool student. And those all depend entirely on the legislation in your area and how much control you have as a parent and what your goals are. So we always are able to target our reporting for the legislation in our area, and we use our own goals to help us make sure that our student is getting the things that we really think is important. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today. So there's a few different models for what we need, and that question in the last slide really showed us that that person is thinking in a transcript model. So how many credits do I need? What's a credit? How do I get credits? And, you know, of course, you're not going to have, likely, unless you're going through an academy of some kind or an accredited organization, you're not going to have like credits given to you. So parents are creating credits on their own transcript. So in a transcript model, as a homeschool parent, you're trying to create a transcript for your students so that when they graduate, they will show something that a college or university would look at and say, that looks like a transcript. So ideally, you want your courses to be called something similar to what the school is going to call them, because the college or university will understand what that means. And that doesn't mean you have to teach exactly the same, but you want it to look similar. So you're looking at a way that you can divide up your courses over the 4 years of high school to get what would be a reasonable transcript. And generally speaking, that means 1 language arts credit per year, so 4 language arts credits. So what you call them will depend on the area in which you live. And if you're using a transcript model, there's a number of ways you can do this. So you can look at the course names for where you live, and you can just model it after that and kind of copy their plan and pull it together however works for you and your student. Another thing that you can do is you can create a transcript using the model that we see, oops, wrong way. Using the model that we see in the senior high home design formula And I used this actually, my son went to high school for the end of high school, which is another story completely. And he got a diploma that was not very valuable as far as education goes, but he got a diploma, so there we are. But this actually got him into the school, no trouble, with tons of credits. The school like understood right away, they could see what was happening. So this is one way to show what you have done. So you might have a transcript, but then you may also create a binder so that each credit that you have will have a sheet, or maybe 2 sheets, depending on how much space it takes up to show the learning outcomes for your credit. And if a university or college asks more information about what your courses include, it'll all be ready. It's all in a binder. So you will have it set out and it'll say grade 9 language arts covered these learning outcomes, and they're all listed. And you might show what curriculum you used to do that, or however you did it. And then generally speaking, through this book, they say that a course is 110 hours. And in my province, it's 110 hours. It's very close. You can check to see how many teachable hours it requires to get a credit in your area. So in Manitoba, in Canada, it's 110 hours for a credit. And so you just basically have 110 little boxes. And every time they do an hour's worth of work, you just scratch off a box and you show that they did 110 hours of work on that. And then you can include some pieces of writing in there to show what they did if you want to. But that's a little bit more of a portfolio method. So I actually have looked, I can't find where this book is available anymore. It may be out of print. But I do have a file that shows what one of these would look like, and I'll put that into the chat actually right now, so you can see it, the link in the chat, and get that form. So that would be what it would look like for that kind of a model. So in a transcript model, you're really trying to make it look like public school. You're trying to make it look like school in your area as much as you can. And what is a credit? What counts to a credit? So I'd already talked about how 110 teaching hours is a credit, or study hours. And what counts as a credit? So someone had asked, what, can reading be a credit? Can grammar be a credit? Language arts is a lot of things. Do you need a credit in grammar, and a credit in writing, and a credit in literature, and a credit in fiction skills? Does fiction skills even count? Okay, what counts as a language arts credit? Well, that depends. If you're following a transcript model that follows your school district, you just want to find out what they count as a credit. But if you are, looking a little bit bigger than that, then what counts as a credit is going to include all of those things. I think in a well-rounded credit, it should include a number of different things, but especially focus on where your student, A, has gaps, and B, the skills that they will need for their life. So that comes up in the next piece. Can you count reading as a credit? I wouldn't. But in Manitoba, you can do almost anything. So it really depends where you live, what you can count as a credit. Generally speaking, I would say a high school credit is going to include some literature analysis, some essay writing, or writing of some kind. I don't think you can do fiction skills for 4 years in a row and count that as credits. I don't think that's going to prepare them for life. But if their goal is to be a fiction author, then maybe it is preparing them for life. It's preparing them for their life, and that is the point of homeschooling. So really, it depends on you and your student and your goals in homeschooling language arts. So this is the model, personally, that I really love. It's the preparedness model. So you take a look at your students' goals, the likelihood of them going to college, university, the likelihood of them being in a language or language-based career, and you actually prepare them. So every student, no matter who they are, no matter what they're doing in life, need to be prepared with persuasive thought and persuasive speaking. They need to be able to listen to the inputs in their life, so social media, music, books, movies, and they need to be able to separate truth from lies. So to be able to think critically about what's happening in the world and in their lives and what people are telling them. They also need to be able to be persuasive so that they can negotiate for themselves, so that they can be proactive in their life, so that they can go into a job interview with confidence and explain why they are the best for the position. They need to be able to go into a meeting with their boss and explain why they deserve a promotion. Those are all skills that come through language arts. So take a look in the preparedness model, you take a look at where you think they might be going and you prepare them for that. But I think every single time it's going to include persuasive something, persuasive speech, persuasive writing, logically being able to prove points. Those are like so important in whatever job that your student ends up in. So that's a piece of the preparedness model. If your student is planning to go to post-secondary education, you're going to want to make sure that they're prepared for the reading and the writing that they're going to need in their field. And that means that their vocabulary needs to increase. It means that their comprehension needs to increase. Their reading level needs to increase significantly in high school in order to read college and university textbooks. They need to be able to write formal papers and do research, to do MLA standard. All of those things are part of a preparedness model. So making sure that they're prepared. So that is how I create my courses in language arts, is I make sure that students are prepared for college, university, and whatever they choose to do in life. So this is sort of the strategy that I use in my model of teaching for my language arts programs. So I have like language arts, specifically I have full year language arts for grade 6 to 8 and for grade 9 to 12. And for both of them, I use this model. So first of all, I challenge them to define their personal worldview, to dig deep, find out what they believe, why they believe it. It is not enough as your student gets into high school ages to just accept everything you tell them. That's really not what you want, because then when they get out in the real world, they're not going to be able to handle and deal with people who come against those ideas. And this world is full of people who are trying to lead them in one direction or another direction or another direction, and they're just going to be tossed around. So we need young people to define their own personal worldview and dig deep into why they believe what they believe. So that's the first thing I challenge them. At the beginning of the course, starting next year, they're going to be writing a worldview statement. They're going to look at what they believe. They're going to prove why they believe it and be able to think through some big questions. And then it's really, really important to supply them tools and strategies, skills for careful research, accurate note-taking, organizing their ideas. So when they read different books and literature, that they can read with their eyes wide open to the ideas that are being put forward by that author. Because however we want to look at it, everyone has a bias. I have a bias and you have a bias, and they're not all going to be exactly the same. So it's really important that when we read or when we consume movies or music or news media, that we understand what the bias is. So to be able to analyze that, to see the bias, to see whether it agrees or disagrees with what I believe, to decide which pieces are truth and which pieces are a lie, or to question things and wonder if they could be true or not. And then also to practice persuasive ideas and logical persuasion. So to take the things that they're learning and to be able to come up with a logical argument to prove why they believe something to be true. So for instance, I liked this book because why? Because it was a lot of fun. Why was it fun? Prove to me that this book was fun. What did you dislike about that book? Oh, I hated Tale of Two Cities. Oh, well, what did you hate about it? You can't just hate it. You have to tell me why you hate it and then prove why you hated it. So just being able to talk on that level and then take those same skills and to be able to transfer that to research papers and use that to be persuasive and powerful in their writing. Those are things that are going to be a success model for their entire lives. So that is my immovable academic model that I use in my courses, and you're welcome to use it as well. It's, not mine, all mine. I can't like keep it all to myself. I want to share it because it really works and I really want everyone to use it. So anyone who finds this model helpful is of course welcome to use it. So you can, if you're interested in that, actually download my free ebook on how to culture-proof your students, learning to raise a world shaker with high academic standards. And it really just walks through this whole process and how I do that in my classes. So you can see the link there at the bottom. You're welcome to download that book. That is kind of the basis for the courses that I offer. But I would love to know if you have more questions about language arts, more questions about how to organize or plan language arts, and please feel free to put those in the comments because I would love to hear more from you. And I don't see any more questions. So I want to thank you all for watching today, and I hope that I will hear from you in the very near future. Have a great day, everybody.